Ooh, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone on. Wanna watch that?
My mama said we cannot watch Harry Potter.
Why not?
We can watch Harry Prophet and the Ark of the Covenant.
Harry Prophet?
Tell me you were raised in a Christian home without telling me you were raised in a Christian home.
First off, we got no Harry Potter because that's witchcraft and that's a no-no, and we don't want to invite that stuff into our house. It's a Waverly Place because that's witchcraft and that's a no-no. SpongeBob because he had a bunch of innuendos and he had a whiny voice. We don't celebrate Halloween, but like we still dress up. Celebrate Halloween, but we don't celebrate Halloween. Making up other words to replace cuss words.
The kid is absolutely right. These are total stereotypes of Christians, and a lot of them, are true. Many of us did do that. But why did parents do this anyway? And I'm talking generally speaking, like your parents, if they really were truly following the Lord, they weren't abusive or anything like that, but they were really they had these rules in place. Like, why did they? Why did they have these rules in place? Did you ever think that they were just staying true to their convictions spiritually, at that time? Like they're doing the best that they can to follow and please the Lord. So they didn't want certain kind of influences that would ruin that. They didn't want to expose their kids to things like witchcraft or premarital relations before marriage or different evil practices. Instead of just not allowing our kids to participate in any of those kind of things, we would find alternatives. And you know what? Somebody picked up on this in the Christian markets because, that's where we got Bible Man and VeggieTales. And you know what? I've been out of this many, many years, and I've grown closer to the Lord now more than then. And I could totally see, even though, okay, maybe in some people's eyes, it did seem kind of churchy or religious or strict of us parents to not allow our kids to participate in some of these things. But when you take a closer look at a lot of these things and examine what a lot of these regular shows that they're promoting to kids, they really aren't good, and they really are anti-God, anti-respect for parents and adults in general, and really just leading people in the ways of the world and away from the Lord. So I can definitely see that. I'm still glad that I did protect my kids from a lot of these things. But I got to tell you, even though, there were things that we did restrict our kids from, and some of these things that they're being joked about, I did. But there was a time that I actually wound up, they got a little older, and I let them watch the Harry Potter, and I let them watch these different things out there, and even Halloween stuff. But you know what? I wound up even regretting it, because it's just the fruit that comes out of that in their lives and their attitude and their decisions that the kids make. I realized, I was better off protecting them from it and not giving them permission to do that. I think I'd rather protect them than give into that, because it's just planting these seeds of things that are not of God. And really, in the end, I have to stand before God and answer for all how I train my kids up. So that's another thing to think about too, the parents just trying to do the best that they can with the time that they had, and even with the knowledge about the Lord that they had during that time and their own personal convictions. Just like you may want to stay true to some of yours today with whatever you're believing, right? So yes, some of these rules may have been not only for their own personal convictions, but really to not only protect people spiritually, to protect their kids spiritually from some of these things, but I even didn't let my kids go to a lot of sleepovers. And the reason for that was, at times, I'm not saying I never did, but at times when I was firm about it, it was because, I don't know what goes on in these other people's homes, if I don't know them, because then I'm exposing my kids to whatever lifestyle the parents of their friends, whatever they allow, or there could be, some kind of child pedophile in their house or something. And there were a few times that I did give in to my child really wanting to stay over at somebody else's house. And then that child wound up telling me the bad things about that visit. So I should have just went with my own convictions and not, but we get tired, we get worn out. Christian parents also deal with I've had my kids in school and out of school a bunch of times, and then finally just stuck with the homeschooling, because when I would give in and put them in school because I was like, they need their socializing or whatever, and they need their proms and all this kind of stuff, I would wound up regretting that too, because the people that they would hang around with would just lead them in a bad way. And even the kids would admit it. They'd come home and admit it to me, and then they want to be homeschooled. Again, just trying to raise children with your convictions. It's really hard to, because it's like you're in the world, you're in the culture, and you got to live here and be part of this world. But at the same time, you want to stay true and not be a hypocrite and stay true to the Lord because you love him. You're thankful for what he has done for you, what he saved you from. And in response to that, you truly want to be true and serving him and being obedient, and you take it seriously. When you let your guard down, that protection goes away and you let the enemy in. And, another reason why I'm bringing this up in this video is, my video is about like contending for the true faith. And I thought this topic would be a good one too, because our culture really has put pressure on these kids like it's a bad thing to be Christian, and they make fun of you for being in a Christian home. And then I think these kids, like, they grow up and they resent their parents for it. And yeah, they're making fun of them, but it is kind of like funny, not funny. And it's ruined their relationships with God, relationships with Christians in general, and even with their parents. Because, I have 4 kids, 2 of them walk with the Lord, and I have a great relationship with them. And the other 2 don't walk with the Lord, and the relationship is either none or distant. Yeah, there's nothing you can do. That's just what happens, and my story isn't the only one like that. There's other ones out there, but it doesn't need to be like that. You could still love your parents, and even if you hold it against them, maybe you could forgive them instead of believing the lies in the world that it was a bad thing. It's a bad thing to be a Christian, or it's a bad thing that you grew up in that home, when really they were just loving you and doing the best that they could with the time that they had, and the relationship and the knowledge, the Bible knowledge and everything at that time, and their convictions. And the world just turned it around and is just trying to ruin families, which they're really good at doing. And we're stupid enough to believe it, aren't we? And we just go with it. And we give in to the bitterness and the unforgiveness and the disrespect and everything, and because we think we know best. So that's why I would challenge you all, if you're watching this and you were brought up in one of these homes, that you would reconsider and forgive your parents, and even give God another chance too, because you may have been believing the lies of this world, and that's really is what is at the root of holding you back between you and your parents, your relationship with them, and your relationship with the Lord. Because in the end, it really does hurt you. Because if you don't know the Lord spiritually, that leads to death spiritually. But then also, you have this disconnect with your parents, and it doesn't need to be that way, because that also leads a void too. When you sit there and get to the root, a lot of these kids, they do miss their parents. They do miss the relationship that they had, but they just won't humble themselves or come to the point of, you know what, maybe my parents were just doing the best that they had, and I should stop blaming them because I'm believing all these lies that people have told me. So just want you to reconsider it. Reconsider how you're thinking about these things when you're making fun of them. And should you, how about instead of mocking it, take into consideration that it really was out of love and protection. And you never know really what they could have or did protect you from, physically and spiritually. And maybe even just, appreciate your parents and the upbringing that you had. And I'm not saying everybody had the perfect home, but seriously, I know for a fact that, there's people out there who truly were brought up in good Christian homes, and they're just finding any kind of reason to play the victim or blame their parents, listen to the lies of the world, that, any reason to just not choose God and definitely not forgive God or the parents or anything. Isn't it easier just to sit there and criticize and blame people instead of taking a step back and considering all the things that I just brought before you to consider, and then maybe, just maybe, it will change. It will change your relationship with God and your parents. And I'm not saying the videos are, they're kind of funny because, like I said, they are true. I know I was one of those that they're making fun of, but, they really were good things. There were a lot of good things. And I can go on with stories of when I let my kids do these things, I let my guard down, and what happened. And then the times where I didn't, when I really just all along should have just stuck with the convictions each time and not caved in. Because isn't it better to stand up for what you believe and go with that instead of caving in to fear or the other voices that just want to call you away from the Lord and just have you and your kids going down a wrong path that isn't good for them? So hope this has helped, and just take things into consideration. We're not all like, ha ha ha, yeah, it's funny making fun of the Christian parents, but you know what? We're not all bad, and we didn't do it for bad reasons. We're not perfect, but we did the best we could, during the time that we had.